Good morning. Welcome to our Facebook Live this morning. My name's Jenny McCormack. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator and I'm based in the market town of Brackley in the centre of the UK. If you're joining me live, thank you so much. Feel free to comment. And with any luck, I'll be able to see your comments today. If you're joining me on Catch Up or on YouTube, thank you for taking the time to do that. And I will look out for any comments, but obviously that won't be interactive during the morning session. Just trying to sort out this lighting. Hopefully that will work. So we have Carol from Salcombe. We have Tracy join us, thank you so much. So let us get cracking. So I have decided this week is going to be my Stamp a Scene week, where we take our Stampin' Up stamps and create some scenes with them. I'm going to start off fairly straightforward and then I'm going to build on that, mixing and matching stamp sets and techniques during the week. So today we're mainly using this stamp set here called By the Dock, and as you can see, the main feature of this is this little walkway here and the boat. So these are two separate stamps. We have oars, we have this little fish popping up, a frog, a bird. This is a really useful stamp for waves. You can use it for clouds, you can use it for sand, for ground, for grass, all sorts of things. We also have this little piece of scenery here, which is also quite useful, obviously for beach scenes, but you could also use it for hillside and the like. And then we have some sentiments. Thank you for making a difference in my life. I'll always look up to you. Happy birthday, and here for you. But obviously you could mix and match that with anything else. So we're going to start with some brayering techniques today. So I did this really quickly just before we started, just to make sure I've got the right sort of colours to hand. So this is the sort of thing that we're going to do. Can't guarantee it's going to end up like that. Morning, Baz. So what I've done here is I've actually done all the brayering before I added this little piece here. And what I tend to do to make life easier for myself, because these brayers are well used, they're well stained, they are actually clean, but they are very stained. So what I like to do is put a little, like a little post-it note sticker with the colour on it. So this is Balmy Blue, this is Sahara Sand, and this is Seaside Spray. So although they don't look like it, that's actually the colours that I have on these three rollers. And if you're wondering how I clean my rollers, then what I do is I've got my rollers and my sponges here, and I sometimes put them through the washing machine, sometimes I just rinse them out with some dishwashing liquid, and then I pop them in one of these bags to rinse them through, and then I actually put them through the tumble dryer so they're nice and dry. If I've got plenty of time, then I'll just pop them in the airing cupboard, but on the basis that I washed these this morning, I did actually just pop them in the tumble dryer before I went out earlier on. So I'm going to start with this one here, and then I'm going to do a watercolour version of the same thing. So the things that I've added on here is I'm actually going to stamp this little pier afterwards, so it goes into the water, And you can see I've added the little ripples from that stamp, which is this one here, to make it look like there's a little bit of movement in the water. And then I've got the little birds here on the right hand side. I am going to pop a sentiment on in here in due course, but that was just the sample so I could just check the colours. So let's give this a go. So I'm actually working on our shimmer white card, which has a little bit of shimmer. It's difficult to see at this time of day. And I have actually cut this one to size for a card front. And I am going to mount it onto some early espresso. Now it's got a line on there, obviously it's the way I've cut it, but it will do the job because it's going to be blended over anyway. I'm actually going to put that at the top in with the sky. So I hope the light for that is okay. Hi Jill, lovely to have you join us. So the colours I've got for brayering, and I'm going to use similar ones for the watercolour technique, are Sahara Sand for the sand. I've got Early Espresso, which I'm going to use for stamping the pier. I've got Balmy Blue and Seaside Spray, and I'm actually using those in that order. So Seaside Spray is going to be my water, and then I've got Balmy Blue at the top, and then Early Espresso for the stamping of the pier and the birds. So let's start with some brayering. Let me grab a piece of grid paper. Let's find a tidier one than that. So I hope everybody's well this morning and have had a nice weekend. Certainly a nip in the air this morning, but it's nice and dry at least. Okay, going to leave that up there. It might be in your view. Oh, it's just about in your view, isn't it? So I'm just starting. It's Monday morning, so I need to start fairly light, and I am going to probably get progressively darker during the week. So let's start off with the Sahara Sand. Now I did think you could actually use So Saffron if you wanted a really whitey yellow sand, but I'm going with Sahara Sand. So I'm just going to pick up this one, which I've labelled Sand. I couldn't use SS for Sahara Sand because Seaside Spray has the same initials. So I'm using the brayer on the ink pad, making sure it's going a full rotation, and I'm just going to come in from the right hand side. So this takes a little bit while to build up. I think my Sahara Sand probably actually needs re-inking. So you can see it beginning to build on there. Like so. And you can decide obviously how much you want to be sand, how much you want to be sea, you know, entirely up to you. And I'm leaving the connecting piece fairly fluid, so I'm not doing just in one place, so that it just sort of folds into the next colour, if that makes sense. So you can see here the colour. Now I am using shimmery white, which is a slightly off white, as you can see against the white of the grid paper. So this week I originally started by thinking I'm going to do masculine cards, and I thought, well, you know, what makes something a masculine card? Why does it have to be masculine, when really what I wanted to say is it's not floral. So I decided, rather than saying it's masculine card, because this could be used for anything, I've gone with the let's make some scenes. Okay, so this is Seaside Spray. I'm going to use this for our water. Let's get the right one. So this is Seaside Spray. And I really want to create this the same effect where this little pier is sort of coming into the water. So again, same thing. Obviously I have got some ink on here already. So just add a little bit more. And then I'm just going to run this across here in the same way and building this up. I could go quite a bit darker for both the sea and the sky. And you can sort of build it up at the sides if you want to give the effect of a little bit of depth of that. So almost like the lights coming down on one side, like so. And then if you want to, you can go back to your sand one and build that up a little bit more. So because I've got a little bit of the blue one here, I'm just using what I've got left on the sand there. So you can see how that's building up. And I really want, for this one, I really want quite a soft look. You know, one of those sort of slightly hazy mornings. Morning, Carol. Carol W. I'm just beginning to wonder where you are. Okay, so this is Balmy Blue. So I've got my sponge brayer with Balmy Blue on it, and again just making sure you're running that well over the ink pad so it's all the way round. What you don't want to do is just this, otherwise you'll end up with only a part of it inked up. I'm going to turn this round and then come in from the right hand side. Now you could add a little layer of Calypso or a pink just to show the horizon going into the sky. So let's just make this a bit deeper. And you can have quite a sharp horizon if you want between these two, or you can have a really subtle one by going over the middle. So, not quite sure, I've got a bit of everything going on here. And then I'm going to do the same thing, just going to bring it in from either side. And then the other side as well. Just so I've got this lighter bit going down in the middle. So you just have to take your time with your brayering. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I have got a little bit of a mark from my fingers on there, but that's actually going to have the little pier on it, walkway, whatever you want to call it. So that's going to be my background. So Sahara Sand, Seaside Spray, and then balmy blue. Now you can see on this one here I've got some detail, and I'm going to add that in after I've added my pier. Okay, so if you wanted to do this a different way, you could stamp your pier first. You could then cut out a mask and cover it up and do the brayering over, so this was completely clear. However, because I'm going to colour the pier in, I wasn't too worried about doing it afterwards. I wanted a nice sort of simple layer. Right, let me wipe my fingers down so I don't transfer any further ink. Okay, so I have placed my pier on my stamparatus. This is just so that I can get the scene the way that I want it, where I want it, without too many variables, and I can also see, you know, where that's going to go and keep it nice and lined up. If I was doing this by hand, then it's just a little bit more risky putting that down to find you haven't got it straight, for example. So that's why I decided to do that. And also, if I didn't stamp it deep enough, I could just re-stamp it again. So what I'm going to do is wipe this down first, and I am using early espresso. Oh, sorry, I think I've used stays on that one, which is why that's stained slightly, so I'll wipe that off later. Just dry that. It does look more natural than black, you're quite right, Carol. As you know, my favourite. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just hover this over. I've got a magnet here from the Stamparatus ready, and I'm just going to move this around until I've got where I want it. So what I like about this technique is that this is stable. I can move my piece around until I'm ready, okay, and then I can stamp it. So let me have a look. So I do want it start in the sand. Don't want to lose too much of it actually. So let's get that bird and everything in. I'm going the wrong way. You can tell it's Monday morning, and you can tell I've only had one coffee, can't you? Okay, let's move this over a little bit. Okay, so I'm just looking at that layout. So it's starting on the sand. Okay, obviously this little bit is open, but I'm not too worried about that because that's actually roughly what I did here. So it just looks like it's been built out of the sand, really. I want this bird to be in its entirety, and I want to cover up that little bit of blue ink as well. So I'm just moving that a little bit further over. Let me have a look. Okay, we'll do halfway house between the two. There we go. I think I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do is put my magnet down to hold that in place, like so. Okay, just going to lift this up and over, try not to knock the camera, put that underneath, and I'm going to use my early espresso ink pad to ink up that scene. And when I do the watercolour one, it will be stays on. So I apologise if this, oh, it should be just on screen. So a nice amount of ink on here. Remembering I can re-ink it if I need to. Okay, there we go. So a nice amount of pressure like so. That's fine. I'm happy with that placement. I don't need to re-ink it, and I've managed to cover up my little bit of blue there. Yay. This particular stamp set does actually come with dies that cut out this hole here and cut out the boat. So you could also do that, stamp it separately, cut it out, place it on here. However, I do quite like the look of it actually being all part and parcel of that. So, just looking for my chamois to wipe the stamp down with. And we've finished with the Stamparatus for the moment. There we go. Okay, so one thing I can do is add a bit of detail in here. Now I could add the boat to this one, like so, but I'm actually going to add it on to the next one, I think. The only thing that I decided, the only thing to watch for the boat is you could have it out in the distance, but this is bigger than this, so it really needs to be relative to that in the foreground. And if I've got too much sand, you know, the boat would be at an odd angle, wouldn't it? So I could add that in there later. But I like it. I want it to look like it, you know, could be on a lake or whatever. So what I am going to do is add a little bit of those ripples. And I'm going to use the Seaside Spray for that. So just make sure that is clean. So see, these little lines are perfect for almost anything. And you can just do this bit of multi-stamping. Stamp this one off. I just want to give it the idea of movement. Like so. Okay, you could also do it in Sahara sand on here, or find a stamp that had a little dots or something. So this one here would actually work. I might do that. As we don't tend to have completely sandy beaches with nothing else going on, do we? So this is Sahara sand. You can see how light this is because you can hardly see that, but just adds a little bit of interest. I'm hoping you can see that okay. There we go. How are we doing? Right, now we're going to do some colouring for the pier, and I'm going to switch to our blends pens. So I've just got a combination of browns really. So I've got an ivory, just as like pinky brown. I've got dark and light crumb cake, and I've got light soft suede. Let me bring this out. So this is the effect that we're going for, and I'm not worried that that's actually in the blue section because my brown is going to be more detailed than that. So let's start with a little bit of light soft suede, and I'm just going to bring this in from the side. So although I'm starting with this stamp set today, I am going to mix it up with lots of other stamp sets during the week. And one that I'm really looking forward to using is Mountain Air. This is the one with the mountain scenery, and I've had it and I haven't used it. So this is a perfect excuse for me to get that inky. So we're going to build complete scenes with this. Now you have to bear in mind that I'm absolutely no artist, so I rely entirely on the stamps to do the work. So I'm just building in a bit of this colour along the edges of the planks here. Now don't worry that I've got a slightly blue seagull. I'm going to correct that. As I said, you could stamp this and mask it off and then do the brayering over, but I do quite like this sort of disappearing into the water. It's much more subtle, I think. Now obviously this rope can be attached to that boat, but I'm just going to let it lie like a loose rope left there. So just adding that little bit of detail, not doing a tremendous amount with it. I've got dark crumb cake, so if you like the next colour down, so just bringing that further in. Like so. So it is covering up the blue nicely. Obviously if you used a really dark blue like Pacific Point or something, you really would need to mask this off. So there we go, and then I'm just going to use the lightest one for the remaining bits, and that is my light crumb cake. Because it's a small area, I am just using the fine tip. I want this to sort of just blend out like that. Leave a little bit of that there. So I quite like that it's got a little bit of that blue, because it just takes on the sort of hue of the, you know, it could be the reflection of the water, or there could be gaps in the wood. You just use your imagination, of course. Okay, let's just do this little bit here. There we go. So my gull is blue, and I really want him to be a little bit brighter. So, oops, I've got a white gel pen. This is a very old one. It's one that we used to sell. And all I'm going to do is just add a little bit of white to my seagull, like so. See that? Okay. And then the other thing you can do is mimic these with a little bit of the white to make it look like the ripples are, you know, just very slightly breaking waves. Like so. So it just mimics that. Now there's lots of ways you could step this up. You could make this into a sunset picture by incorporating more colours at the top, oranges and things like that. You could also add the one of the sailing boats from Sailing Home. This one here. You could have this tiny little one. Well, it's not tiny, but this little one out in the distance. Okay, that would work better if it was a portrait card where you had more of the sky showing. But so there's lots of combinations of things that you can do. Now I've added, you can see on here, I've added a couple of birds as well, so let's do that. So it's got a very useful little bird stamp. You could also use the birds from, is the Sailing Home got some? Yes, you could use these. That would also work. Or the ones from I can't think of what the other one is called now. It'll come to me later. It'll come to me. So here's my bird. So I'm just going to have two coming in from the side. And again, I'm going to add a little bit of white for them. So let's have one up here, like so. And there. So I've got 3 altogether. Just going to let that espresso ink dry before I add the gel pen. So this is just a standard white gel pen. Sadly we don't sell them anymore. But I am going to colour those in, and then I'm just going to pop a sentiment on there. And I'm thinking Forever Starts Today would be quite nice. This one here from Bloom and Grow. Or let's see if there's one. Collect Beautiful Moments from Beautiful Moments. So this is an obvious add to this. It's the girls with the buckets and spade. You could have on here. So if you had this as more sand and maybe just the tip of that, that would look great with these two girls, wouldn't it? You've also got the birds here that you could use. So the nice thing about stamping scenery cards is that you can mix and match so much more. You can add this little bit in here if you wanted a bit of foreground, for example. I'm thinking I'm going with the Collect Beautiful Moments, although it is quite small. It's slightly bigger than could put that in there. I like the sentiment, so I'm going with that, even though it's slightly smaller than I probably wanted. It's a nice sentiment, isn't it? So you could use this as a retirement card, as a thinking of you, as a get well card. Let's straighten this up on the block. So I'm putting the block straight on my grid paper. Now this is a bit of a funny angle because that beautiful is not dead straight. So what I'm doing is looking at the word collect and moments, and it's those that I'm lining up, hopefully, looking through. Because if you look at that, that doesn't look anything like straight, does it? Of course it might not be. Okay, how are we doing for time? Oh my goodness, I have yacked on, haven't I? Right, let me do this, otherwise we won't have time for our watercolour version. So I'm just looking at this, keeping it straight. You see what I mean? And yet that is straight on there, give or take. So do that again. Put this on here, and I'm getting my card level with my grid paper, and then my block level with my grid paper, So you could of course do this on the Stamparatus as well to get that really straight, but I'm happy with that. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do is colour those gulls in and mount it all up together. So here's my very well used, so well used that the base is split. So with the gel pens you want to start the gel running, and I'm only going to add a little bit to this. I don't want it to sort of overtake everything else. You could also add a little bit of shading. So if this was a sort of traditional gull, then you could make it a sort of smoky slate colour. This gel does have a bit of a texture, but I think it makes those really stand out. So there we go. I'm going to layer that, surprise surprise, onto early espresso, and then I haven't decided which colour of card, so I've got crumb cake, which looks rather nice. I've got vanilla, which also works. Peacock, Coastal Cabana, which I've ruled out because that's the wrong blue, and white. Oh dear. So you let me know what you think. Crumb cake, vanilla, or peacock, while I'm just layering this up. Hi Jeanette. You can indeed, my darling. I hope you are well. So crumb cake, vanilla, or peacock for my layer behind. Okay, so if you have used a gel pen, you want to make sure that that is dried before you turn it over, otherwise it can run on this, you know, if it's still wet it can run onto this surface. Okay, so I'm not actually going to put it down, I'm just going to use some wet glue in case it's not quite dry. It says, oh there it is. So stamping scenes this week, Jeanette. So starting off with just some basic brayering today, and then we're going to start building the scenes up during the week. So we're going to do one with sunsets, one with mountains, and then one adding people, and I dare say a few more things as well. There we go. So I do like this, the dots in here for the sand. It makes it more realistic than this plain one, in my opinion. So what do we think in terms of colours? Anybody got a suggestion? I can't really decide. I think the nice thing is that they will all work. I think I might quite like that. Picks up the blue, doesn't it? That makes it stand out though. Okay, crumb cake or peacock it is then. One or the other. Oh dear. Why can't I decide? Right, first person to comment gets it. Oh, there is nothing between it, is there? So, I'm going to use crumb cake only because that is already scored and this one isn't. Oh, and Jill likes crumb cake. Whew. That is good. Problem solved. Okie dokie. So it's running out, I fear. Oh no. Just got to be a bit patient with it. There we go. A scribble of glue. And this one opens at the side, which I do rather like. And then hover it over, slide it round a little bit. There we go. Happy with that. And remember, if your gel pen is still wet, don't rub it over the gel pen. So there we are. I'm happy with that. Okay, so that was the brayering technique. So let's do a quick, I don't know if that actually is a quick watercolour technique, but let's just do a watercolour version of the same thing. And I'm going to do this slightly differently in that I'm going to stamp first and then watercolour over. So I've got another piece of shimmer white, and because I'm using watercolour I need to use Stays On. So you move this one to one side. Actually, move it right out of the way, because the thing with watercolour and water painters is it does tend to go everywhere. So I'm going to do the same thing. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same scene in watercolour, and then you can see the difference, can't you? Have this a little bit further down. Okay, I think that will do. Perfect. So I'm going to stamp this one in Stays On, and I've got jet black. I do actually have a brown one, but I do want it to stand out behind the watercolour. So inking that up, just pop that over. Sorry if that was a bit close to the camera, to make you feel giddy on the first day of the week. There we go, like so. I could have done it twice actually, couldn't I? Never mind, that will do the job. Let me wipe that down. Okay, so for this I'm going to use, so I've got my muslin cloth, which I should have had the other day when I was watercolouring, and I'm going to find my two water painters. So I'm using two today. This is the medium brush, this one here, and this is the wide brush, as you can see. So this is great for doing large areas. Okay, now I'm no watercolour artist, so I'll apologise now, although I am trying to improve. So what I'm going to do is take a block and some ink. So I'm actually going to do something similar. So this is actually So Saffron, so I might need some crumb cake to make it the same. So I'm just going to put a couple of dots of that, and then I've got Balmy Blue. I haven't got Seaside Spray because we're waiting for that one to come in. Hopefully there are some due in this week. And then I've got Pacific Points. That's really deep for my sky here, but I am going to dilute it down a bit. So what I'm actually going to do is avoid this. I could colour this in first, but you've seen me colour that in already, so if I'm running out of time I can leave that and colour that in afterwards. So I've got my large brush here, and I'm just squeezing some of the water out so that I've got a nice wet brush, like so, and I'm just going to wet the bottom section where my sand is going to go. Like so. So if you can see, that is wet on there. Add some water to this because I don't want it too strong. Helps if you push it in the right place, though, doesn't it? I want it even more dilute than that. That's better. And then I'm just running that across there, as you can see. So this is called wet on wet, where you apply wet watercolour, in this case from our ink refills, but you could use watercolour pencils. You could use our standard ink pads just popped onto a layer there. And then what I'm just going to do is just sort of draw a line there. So if you want a sharp definition, use the edge of the brush. If you want a loose definition, then can you see I'm just sort of brushing that to get that difference in there. Okay, just building that little bit up on there, and I can use that same stamp to do the detail as well. I'm just going to rinse this out separately. One thing I did find on Friday was it really holds the ink, as you can see. So I'm just rinsing that out. And what you want to do with watercolours is you want to make sure that each layer is dry if you want to avoid them going in together. Now, it's not an issue for me here for them to blend into each other, but I am going to give it a little bit of a hit with the heat gun, just to make sure, because I don't want it going too far into the other. So I'm just using the heat gun to dry that off. And you'll also notice that this will go flat again when that's all dried. Okay, and you notice it will go lighter as well. Okay, so now I'm going to do the blue layer. Just remember which one I had. So Sea Spice Spray would have been perfect for this, really. But I've got Balmy Blue. This is going to be my C. Okay, so you want it relatively wet. And again, what I should have done was wet this first. So let me just give it a brush like so. And if you have it wet first, then it does blend in a little bit better. Okay. So a little bit more water. So I'm going to sort of create that line there. So this is where, if you wanted a skyline to sort of change, you could do it at this point. So if you wanted like a purple sky or something. And I do quite like this brush for doing edges, because although it's wide, it does give you the perfect edge, like so. So add a little bit more colour if I need it, like so. So this is relatively quick if you're using a larger brush, like so. And if you want to add a little bit of depth then just as in some edges like that. As I say, I'm absolutely no expert, but I am taking some online classes to improve my skills a little bit. Okay, and then I'm just going to dry that off, and then finally I'm going to add my sky. Let me just bring this a little bit higher. So our water painters come as a set of 3, and they are 11. They're either 11.25 or 11.95, so they're less than £12, which for 3 brushes, which would last you quite a long time, I think is really good value. Like so. And then finally I'm going to do the top layer. Just going to give that a little bit of a blast with the gun. So I'm coming up to an hour, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go quite as long, but I wanted to do 2 in 1 today because there's a lot to carry on with. And then finally I'm going to go for the darker one, the darker blue. So I'm just going to add a bit more water. Let me just scroll down in case there's any comments. Oh, there is. Oh, peacock, crumb cake, crumb. Oh, thank you, Jeanette. As I said, they're certainly better. Watercolour artists than me. And of course what you can use, and we will be using later in the week, is stamps to do a lot of this work for you as well. Like so. I didn't wet it, so you can see the difference between having it wet and wet, between this, how that is blended, and how this isn't. Need a bit more water on there. So one thing you can do is just dab it out to get the effect of clouds. Okay, so I'm just going to go over that like so, and then just with the cloth, can you see it gives a little bit of definition. And then the last thing I'm going to do is going to go over this join, and I might do that with the smaller brush just to blend this in a bit more. So as I say, the secret is having it fairly wet, but you must make sure you're using watercolour paper or our shimmer white. And again, if you want the illusion of clouds or depth, then you can do like so. Okay, so I'm going to add some ripples in with that useful little stamp, and I'm going to use Barbie blue. And this doesn't matter if it runs a little bit because it's on the same bit. There we go. And I'm going to add some yellow. Well, I might just do crumb cake for this bit. I haven't got any saffron to hand. But there we go. So just use a little bit of crumb cake, hopefully it won't look too odd. No, I'll get away with that. like so. And obviously there's lots of bits you can add to that in the foreground. You could add grasses and the like. And I'm going to add some gel pen again. Like so. So it looks like sort of breaking waves there. Like so. Let's put some birds in, so I've got it the same, and then I'll quickly colour in that so you've got something similar. Actually, I'm going to colour that in first. Now the nice thing is, because obviously this is alcohol based, it won't matter. This is water based, so it's not going to run. So I've got a bit of light soft suede. I'm only going to do this one really quickly because you can watch my original one. I'll catch up. So just using the definition that the Stampin' Up designers have kindly given us. So, and I do like the fact that you can mix and match blends with watercolour. Oops. There we go. And I've got dark crumb cake and then light crumb cake. So I wonder which one you prefer. So I'm just going over that really quickly. This is light crumb cake, which looks like it needs replacing soon, but it will do the job for now. There we go. Okay, now the only thing I feel about this is that there's no obvious horizon, so I might put a horizon in. This is a bit of ivory. A little bit of ivory for the seagull. There we go. Let's pop the birds in. I am going to use stays on. So this one coming in just off the edge. So I'm just going to try and add a bit more of a line there, and then this one will be done. Right, just getting some water out of this. You do have to press quite hard to get the water to come out, because it's not designed obviously to flood out. So if you want, you could have a small jar of water near you. So what I'm thinking is I want to do sort of that, but I want to do it a bit darker. Sorry if my hand is in your way. It'd be better, wouldn't it? So it's that sort of effect I want. Not sure I've got it really. There we go. It's a bit more like mountains in the background, but never mind. Okay, let's add a little bit of gel pen to these, a sentiment, and then we're done. So I'm just using this gel pen because I want it to show up over the blue. There we go. There we have it. Right, sentiment. So I've got a similar picture, and then I'll put the two together. And then let me know which one. I am going to use Stays On again. If I knew this was really dry, then I would definitely do it in espresso. But I don't want to, having got this far, spoil it if it runs a little bit. Let's do that. So I've got that straight. I've got my block straight to that. There we go. Okay, so that one is going on to there again. So espresso background. I just thought that would make it stand out. Scribble of glue. Like so. And again, just watch out for the gel pen. You don't really want to smudge it. Voila. And that one is going to go on peacock, I think. Or vanilla. Yeah, that one's going on vanilla. Okay. So, I'm sorry I've gone on longer than I would normally. But be interested to know which of the two you prefer. that one out of the way. So there's the watercolour version. And here is the blended version. So obviously this is a different colour because I use crumb cake on here. And I've used So Saffron on that one. And I went around here, whereas this one is actually in the water. But as I said, you could stamp it, cut out a mask, and then do your blending over. So I wonder which one you prefer. So this was number 1, the blended version. This is number 2, the watercolour version. So quite different. This obviously makes it look much bigger, whereas this one all blends in together. So this could be a small, you know, lake, whereas this is obviously looking out to sea, isn't it? So do let me know which you prefer, blended or watercolour, or I should say brayered, maybe that would be a better description. So that is all for today. So thank you for joining me. So this is my week of Stamp a Scene. So you'll see lots of different scenes being built up. So this is one that I'm really keen to use. So this is one of those that you can turn the stamps over and use both sides. So we've got clouds, we've got a moon or a sun, we've got more little birds, trees, obviously the mountains, and then a line of trees. And this also has a series of dies to go with it. So watch out for that one later in the week, and then I'll be mixing and matching as I progress during the week. So I hope that's been useful. Jill says she prefers the watercolour. Thank you, Jeanette. Yeah, it's just different, isn't it? Okay, so thank you so much. So tomorrow, Tuesday, I will be here live at 3 p.m. and this video will be available on Facebook Catch Up shortly. So if you have been watching on Catch Up, thank you so much. And also on YouTube in about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate your support. I do hope you have a good week. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. I do hope you stay safe and keep crafting. Thank you. Bye-bye.